Rip's garage. Well, actually Rip's driveway today. We're taking a break from my other projects to work on this 2000 model Daewoo Nubira. It's got a bit of a misfire, especially at idle, and it gets worse when the car warms up. So that makes me think that it's something to do with the ignition system, the leads, maybe the coils. Resistance goes up as things get hotter. So we're going to check the spark plugs, the leads and the coils. I'll show you how to do that. So what we're going to do, the spark plugs are hidden under this cover. So I'll pull those screws out, we'll get the cover off, and we'll check the colour of them, the condition, and we'll make sure that they, visibly they look all right. Now spark plugs are pretty cheap and easy to change out, so we might just change them anyway because this is due for a new set. Then you've got the ignition leads over here. We're going to check the resistance on all of those. You're looking for about 12,000 ohms per foot or less. Now that's foot's about 300 millimeters, so I think the longest one is number 1 here, which goes all the way to that side. So we'll want definitely less than 12,000 for that one, and even less as we go down. And then this here is your coil pack. It's got 2 coils, primary, both have a primary and a secondary winding, so we'll check the resistance across those. I'll show you how to do that. And it's a weighted spark system, that's why it's only got 2 coils. So this coil does cylinders 2 and 3, and that coil does cylinders 1 and 4. So I'll show you how to do that. I'll just get this off and we'll get started. Alright, now I've pulled the spark plugs out, and I've popped them in a box because I did order new ones anyway, and I like to label them 1, 2, 3, 4 just so I know which plug came out of which cylinder, and that way if you're doing fault finding down the track, it's easy to figure out what's going on. I don't know if you can see through the packet, so I'll just pull them out. They all look pretty good. So that is a relatively good, I'd say a really good sort of color indication on the spark plug. You don't want them to be black. That would mean that you're getting too much carbon in there. You're running maybe too rich or something, and if your plugs are wet on the tip, that would suggest that you're not igniting the fuel properly. And if the electrode there on the end was burnt down, worn away severely, that would suggest that you're running too lean. But that colour there is a great colour to see, that sort of tan colour, and they're all basically the same. So that's a good indication, and this problem's only started recently, so I wouldn't have expected them to be in poor condition, but I'm going to change them anyway because I don't think these plugs have ever been changed. And next thing we'll do is we'll test the resistance of the leads. Alright, so I've got my multimeter. I'm going to put it on 20,000 because we're going to be looking at the thousands range of ohms to check resistance. And I'll put it there so that you can see. Apologies for the planes, there's quite a few planes flying around today. We'll start with number 4, that's the shortest. And these are a bit warm because it was driving about half an hour to an hour ago. So all you do is you clip your one lead onto one end, the other lead in the other end, and we're getting about 1.25. Okay, so that's 1,250. That's pretty good. Don't think there's an issue with that one. Put it back. Next we'll go on to cylinder number 3, that's the second shortest. Alright. Clip our lead on. And we're getting 152. So again, that's a good reading. That's what you want to see. Cylinder number 2. 22.44. Yeah, not bad. It's getting a bit higher, but still pretty good. You've got to remember that this is almost twice the length of the other ones, so you'd expect there to be a bit more resistance in it. Now let's check cylinder number 1. Lead number 1, I should say. Alright, where is our alligator clip? There it is. Alright, so chuck that there. And 3.04. So again, not too bad. Okay, so the other thing we want to do is just check them visually. Make sure they're not burnt out, there's not breaks in them, because you can get cross-firing on these leads. They can sort of, if the sheathing or the insulation is damaged, it can induce a spark in the cylinder next to it, and that means that the spark doesn't go to where you want it to. But these don't look too bad. Can't see any noticeable signs of wear. So the next thing we're going to do, I'll pop the plugs back in so that nothing gets in the engine bay, and we'll check the coil down here. So this is our coil here, and like I said, it's a weighted spark system, so you've got one coil for 2 cylinders, and over here you've got cylinder 4 and 1, and then 2 and 3. I think it's even labelled on there. So 1, 4, 2, 3, and on the other side you've got a 4-pin plug. Now it's not that common to have a 4-pin plug on these. Normally you'd have a 3-pin plug. What you'd have is one of the pins goes to one coil. It's the signal for the coil. You'd have another pin for the other coil, and one of them would be a 12-volt signal. In this case there's a 4th one, and I believe that's just an earth. So to check what's what we do is we get the plug here, and if one of them's earth, we'll know by earthing it using the multimeter to the cylinder block, and then we can find the positive 12 volts by turning the ignition to on and checking for a 12-volt feed. So I'll grab my multimeter and we'll do that. Alright, so first test will be, I'll ground that there, make sure it's got a good connection, and we'll just look for any sort of resistance. Alright, so that second one there looks like, yep, that second pin there, that's our ground. See how multimeter goes to 0? There's no resistance between that and the block, so that's a ground, which means on the coil that goes that way. So that one there, I think it's labelled C. So it's got A, B, C, D just down here. Number C, or letter C, second one from the right, that's our ground. So now to find the positive, I'll just turn the ignition on, and we'll test which one of these has a 12 volt coming through it. To do that, I'll whack my multimeter on DC, yep, and volts. So we want to go this way. So I'll just go turn the ignition on. Alright, ignition's on. Let's see. Yeah, 12 volt coming through there. Nothing. nothing, and nothing. So that far one there, sorry, I don't know if you could see that, I wasn't looking at the screen, I think my hand was in the way. That's your 12 volts there, and then there's nothing on that one. We know there's nothing on that one, and nothing on that one. So that means that 12 volts is our A. So A is 12, C is earth, and that means B and D are the signal wires to each coil. So I'll go turn the ignition off and we'll proceed. Now, to test the coil, you've got two coils in here actually. So really this is a transformer and you're testing the resistance across the coils. You've got a primary and a secondary. Now to test the secondary, which is the one with the higher output, the one that goes to the spark plugs, it's pretty simple. You just bridge these two, or these two, and that'll tell you what the resistance is across the coil. Now, if you had a 6-cylinder car, there'd be another bank which would be 5/6. Or it might be different numbers, but you'd check the other bank. So what we're going to do, the resistance is going to be quite high, so we're going to put it on the 20,000 ohm reading. Just pop that there. Now I'll get my one clip and stick it on here, and the other clip lead and put it there. And might have to bump that up a smidge. Why are you not working? Let me try this. There we go. Okay, so that one we're getting 5,000 ohms. 5,000? No, that's 200 reading. Yeah, that's right, 5,000. Okay, so 5.5, and that's pretty low. That's okay. Now for this one, why wasn't I getting a reading? There we go. We're getting 4.9, so 4,900. Okay, so that's not bad. The resistance is quite low there. Alright, so I must have had a bad contact when I first did that. Just do it again, double check. Yeah, 4.9 on that bank. And 5.4 on that one. Ideally you'd want them to be the same, but you know, that's not too bad. They're not too high. Okay, so that's how you check the secondaries. Okay, now to check the primary side of the coil, we know what A, B, C and D are. We've got A is 12 volts, C is ground, B is one of the coil signals, and D is another coil signal. So what you do is you get your lead and you look at the resistance across the two coil signals, so that'd be B and D. So in this case we've got 113.1, and that's on the 200,000 ohm reading. So I'll just write this down. Now we're going to look at the reading across the 12 volt input and the coil signals. So that's A and D is 113.6, and A and B just let me get a good reading. Not getting a good reading on that one. 20.1. So 20.1 across A and B, and across A and D, getting 114. I'll write that down. Those figures that I got from the coil that was on there, they seemed a bit odd. The resistance between the two signals to the secondary coils seemed too high to me, so I've gone and purchased a new one because I couldn't find the surface information on what this coil should be. And if I check the resistance of this one, so I'll go A to B, that gives me about 19.8. Sorry, I'll just try and get that to focus. Yeah, so that was about 20, which is good. That's what I was getting on the other one. And if I check the resistance from the A to B, I'm getting about 20 as well. Sorry, that was A to B. If I go A to D, I'm getting 17.1 instead of 114. And if I go B to D, I'm getting about 7.2 instead of 113. So there's definitely something wrong with this old coil. And that's, definitely time to replace it. So I'll whack the new coil on. And when I actually bought this coil, I got some new leads as well. So since I've put new spark plugs in, I'm going to put new leads and a new coil and have it all new. Now, one other thing I noticed, which is a bit irrelevant to checking coils, but I had a bit of a weep here on the rocker cover area, and I ended up pulling that bolt out, that hex head bolt. And I don't know if the camera's picking this up, but that bolt head is slightly smaller than all these. So I think what's happened is in the past, someone's taken this rocker cover off to maybe replace the gasket, and they've lost one of the bolts, and they replaced it with just a normal Allen head and a split ring washer, spring washer. The problem is these aren't spring washers under these heads. What they are is they're actually a sealing washer, and they stop oil from coming up. So since I don't have the right bolt either, I put a bit of sort of Sikaflex high temp RTV there to seal it up, so that should stop the leak. And anyway, I'll put the new leads and the new coil on, and we'll button this back up and take it for a test drive. Just going to test the resistance on these while we're at it. $271. Let's see what the resistance was on the old ones. That's the original lead. Now look at that. That's a huge difference. So the leads definitely do need to be replaced as well. Alright, job done. Thanks for watching.